Ulysses S. Grant, he always had this lifelong hatred of slavery. His father had been an abolitionist. He was opposed to slavery. And then after he goes to West Point for college, he serves in the U.S. Army, fights in the Mexican-American War. He goes through some really, really hard times. He basically bounces out of the Army. He's struggling. He's actually selling like firewood by the side of the road to make his living. He's trying to eke out survival on this tiny piece of land that he has. He is as poor can get. And through his wife, he ends up inheriting a slave. And so he had this objection to slavery on sort of moral, ethical grounds. And here in this moment, he's doing all this backbreaking labor by himself. And for free, he inherits a human being who would literally be his slave, who could do all this work for him, who could make his life so much better. He could help Grant provide for his family. He could help him get out of this, cycle of poverty that he's in. So he's basically tested, right? We all have our ideals. We have how we think the world should be, but we're not actually forced to put those principles on the line in a real way. And what I think is so interesting about this story is that was Grant being tested in a way that even the Civil War didn't test him. And so what does he do? He inherits his slave. He can afford basically nothing. Even if he didn't want to own a slave, he could sell the slave and use the money to seriously improve his life. But he's opposed enough to slavery that he manumits the slave. His name is William Jones. He gives him his freedom, which means Grant gets nothing in return for it, except that it was the right thing to do. And so there's this wonderful quote from Marcus Aurelius. He says, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." There was a bunch of reasons why Grant could have contradicted his beliefs. He could have done the thing that was better for him personally, even though it was what he had in the abstract previously said he didn't want to do. But he didn't do it. He did the hard thing. He did the right thing, even though it was the hard thing. There's this idea in philosophy, it comes from Cicero. He calls it the summum bonum, and it means the highest good. It's the idea of virtue, arete. The highest good is virtue. It's the only thing that matters. And I think that's what Marcus was saying. He's like, you gotta do the right thing. No excuses, no explanations. You do what you know in your heart is right, and then you figure out the consequences. And what's so beautiful to me about that Grant story is that was it in action. Yes, sure, he goes on to serve bravely in the Civil War. He fights to free the slaves. He fights to keep America as one country. But it's really in the 1850s, in this private moment, when he is given a chance to have the benefits of slavery at none of the costs, when he could have come up with a bunch of ways to rationalize doing the wrong thing for the sake of his family, for the sake of his body, for the sake of the fact that he was on the verge of terrible poverty, but he didn't. He did the right thing. And I mean, one of the reasons I keep the coin in my pocket is a reminder of that idea that we've got to do the right thing because it's the right thing, and there's no excuses. The rest doesn't matter. What matters is that you do the right thing.
Thanks for watching. Please click subscribe below for more content from us at Daily Stoic.